So really what we're testing here today, since we're inside of a shelter because it's really crappy outside, when you're ice fishing and you're not hole hopping. So even though you may want one of these units because it's lightweight and you're gonna be hole hopping, which we'll test in another video, the idea of once you find your spot and you go into down mode, which one's gonna be better? And if you're one of those fishermen that want live imaging and that's primarily what you do, maybe you set up a hub house, you got a permanent shack and you wanna use it, that's what this video is really gonna be going through and showing you the pros and cons of both. And of course, the ideal solution for that, you'd wanna go with a full beam live imaging transducer that's not Panoptix, but both of these being catered more towards the hole hopper or a more budget-friendly option such as the Eagle Eye. Let's see which one of these would actually work for you best in this type of situation. All right, so this right here is the Lowrance Eagle Eye. Let me get that cover out of the way. You can see I've got the Eagle Eye live imaging transducer here hooked up, and we are hooked up to the HD Innovations carbon pole. It's my favorite pole to use this year, so far at least. And then we've got the Eagle Eye 9 head unit, and I've got it on a Bass King shuttle that weighs about 1.75 pounds. This mount bracket doesn't really fit it, but it works fairly well. And we got a 7.5 amp hour amped outdoors battery on it. Super lightweight. I need to weigh this, but I'm pretty sure this setup with this pole and inducer is the same weight as what we're going to use again today to do a little bit of comparison side by side here. This is the Garmin Panoptix PS22 ice fishing bundle. Again, set up here with the poleless design. And I did grab the foam float, so I've got the foam float for this to go into the hole today too. Let me get a GoPro hooked up to each of these, and then what we'll do is we'll get them fired up to get you some better image quality than last time. All right, so we're gonna start up the Lowrance. So we've got a switch down there we got to power on, and then we hit this power switch here, and boom, she starts booting up. And then this is not a touch screen unit, so you've got to just use the buttons on the side. So we're in forward view right now. The cool thing about this transducer is that it doesn't have to turn to go into forward or down. We're gonna drop this down the hole. So you've got plus and minus that you can zoom in, and then you can move around on the screen a little bit, right? Well, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna zoom back out. And what we're gonna do is start playing with the settings a little bit. So we're gonna hit this little hamburger menu here. We can see we're in forward or down mode. If I switch this, we can go to down mode, and then you can see directly below. So you can see the beam angle in terms of this versus live scope, which I'll put live scope on the screen here. This is a third. So think of live scope going way up here to way up here, right? That's your normal view you're used to. But this is so much clearer, I think, than if we were to use something like the Panoptix PS22, which we're gonna have side by side with this guy. So granted, there's no fish on here, so it's a little bit deceiving, but let's go back into forward mode. We gotta go back to live sonar. I clicked the wrong button. Go, so hamburger menu. So we wanna go forward again, just so that way we can look out. We click X to go back. Forward range, 100 feet, let's leave it there. Down range is 30. We're not in 30 feet, so we could actually go less than that. We could go 15. And you can see it's going to make it a little bit easier for us to see that whole water column. Contrast auto, we'll leave as auto for now. Noise reject, let's pop that puppy up to high. Ooh, interesting. Go to medium, go to low, go to high. Wow, we'll go to medium for now. And I think what we need to do, surface clarity, so this I think is like a TVG. Yeah, this is like a TVG. We'll just go low for now. No, we'll go medium. More options. So this is the color palette that I want to use, but they've got a bunch of different color palettes. I'll just kind of rotate through here. Not sure what the names of them are, but these are the ones that come standard in it. My favorite is the last one, by the looks of it. I mean, I haven't used this thing. Range grid we're going to have off, but if we put straight, you can see it just puts a grid pattern over the top. So let's go back. Stable view we'll leave on. And I don't have an SD card in here, but if I put an SD card in here, it looks like I can record the video. So maybe we'll try that in the future, in a future video. So that's what we're looking at here. Let me get out of this and let's turn it in circles here. Like, that's really high. Contrast must be gain is what I'm thinking. So let's go ahead and adjust the contrast down. Ooh. So that isn't the gain. That's contrast is essentially your color gain, is essentially what I'm seeing here. So we'll leave the color gain alone, but I'm not actually seeing noise rejection. Clean it up a little. Surface clarity, clean it up a little more. There's no actual like gain that I can see, because the plus and minus just zoom in. You can see in the bottom corner, we can go to 1.8x in 0.2 increments. So 1, 1.2, 4, 6, 8. And then you can just like choose spots in here with those arrows. You can mark a waypoint, right? Discard. Otherwise, you've just got this. Interesting. So let's drop it to down mode and let's see what we got here. The down range, you've got your contrast and everything else in here. Same options as before. Kind of looks like some activity down there on the bottom, right? On the right-hand side here, you can kind of see something moving around. Oh yeah, some fish hugging bottom. I bet those are perch. Let's go ahead and drop a line down and jig them and see what we can see. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to back out of this, and I wonder if I can zoom in. Ah, so that's the trick. Zoom in so you can see a little bit. Even though your cone angle doesn't get bigger, you can still zoom in and see a little bit more. Okay, let's grab a rod. And the thing that I like here is you do have on the left and the right 3.6 plus and minus. On the floor, it's telling you how wide your beam is, which is kind of a nice feature. We'll drop down here right next to my rod because I don't have a huge cone angle right now because I am pretty shallow. But let's just see what it looks like as my lure drops down right next to it. So I should be under the transducer. There it goes. Okay, so that's a hot signal. I could probably turn the contrast down a little bit. So you can see me down there. Oh, yep, fish coming off the bottom. Holy smokes, yep, fish coming off the bottom. These got to be small perch. That's what my money is on. Little tiny perch. Pretty good picture clarity though. And it's really reactive too. Like I don't have any lag at all. I'm pretty impressed with this. And you can tell even with that reduced cone angle on it, right? It's not that big of a deal because you can zoom in towards the bottom, which is typically where you're gonna be fishing anyways, but you can move it up and down the water column or stay zoomed out too if you want to. Yeah, and we got just tiny little perch we're dealing with here. Little guy. So that's what we got going on down here. But bait fish is always good to be messing around with here, because that means hopefully we'll get some bigger fish to come through too. Try to jig one more here. That's what we know these little guys look like. Maybe I'll turn the contrast down. In fact, let's do that. Let's play around here and let's go turn our contrast down. Yeah, we'll go -12 for now. And I just got a tiny little jig down there, so the clarity on this little jig is actually pretty dang good. But these fish just look so small. What we're gonna do now is we're going to get the PS22 going. This guy, so this is the PS22 we're gonna power on with the GoPro set on that as well. So now we are in down mode, which is good. It's where we wanna be. And we want to get under the slush to about there so we can drop this puppy down further. And now we gotta see how lined up this is. So if we turn that, it's about as good as we're gonna get it, I think. And the difference here is that I'm not zooming in. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm actually changing the range on here that you can see, because now we're at 20 feet. Now it's at 30 feet. So that's what's actually happening there. So if I click here, we can go to 15, which is, the other one's at 12. So let's go to 12 on this guy. Let's turn this gain down. The gain is so high. All right, and we're gonna go into the settings. We're gonna go range of 12. Boom, okay. And then we're gonna do appearance, our color gain. Let's drop her down to 83. Let's go to high noise reject. Ooh, that's better. And that's what we're working with here. So if we turn the gain down to somewhat match what we're working with on the other one, it's relatively comparable, if you will, between the two, right? And you can see how much wider the beam angle is on the Panoptix, the PS22, which is nice because you can see more of the floor. So that's one of the benefits here, right? Is being able to see that wider range. So now I'm gonna go back down and jig that same lure. And this is all that I'm jigging right now, this tiny little Rattle Master with a little red hook on it and then two little grub type things on the bottom here. I'm gonna go back down this hole with the Lowrance and see if and or when. So it's picking it up on the Lowrance. I know I'm not directly below the PS22, but I should be in the cone angle of it if it's pointed the right direction. So maybe we'll turn our gain up. There we go. That's probably it right there, maybe. This feels like the biggest fish so far. There we go. Still not an eater size, but definitely a better size perch. Perch nonetheless. Yeah. All right, let him go. Now let's drop back down again and see, because I think we saw it on the Panoptix and the Eagle Eye. Okay, so you can see me on the Lowrance pretty good. And on the Panoptix, you can see me over here about 3 feet away, which is accurate. So that's all that activity over there. And you can see how narrow the beam is, but the definition is a little bit better quality on the Lowrance. So that's what we're dealing with here. I'm gonna flip the screen here. There we go. You can see all the fish coming up to me. You see how much faster the activity is happening on the Lowrance. On the Panoptix, the battle that we have is we're consistently fighting, turn the gain down so they're not as blobby, but at the same time, if they're not as blobby, they're harder to see. Whereas on the Eagle Eye, I can actually turn that contrast down, and what we're able to see is that smaller actually bringing the gain down rather than making it disappear, because the blob is a little bit more defined on the Lowrance. Just like, look at the activity here. And this is with noise reject on high, right? And the activity level and how fast the response time is on the Eagle Eye. Now I'm gonna move over and drop down the hole of the Panoptix so that I'm directly below this one. And let's see how much of a difference that makes. You should see me on the Panoptix dropping down directly below, which you do, kind of. It's hard to see. I think I'm on the bottom. So I missed it, right? My jig is literally right below, and I can't see it. I gotta turn the gain up to see where my jig's at. There we are. about 10 feet there. You can see me dropping down right there. That's where my jig is, and it's hard to see. And you can see how much slower it is. I think that's because we have a high noise reject on here. It's not handling the noise reject as nicely as... Yep, there we go. A little bit better activity. So you're not going to be able to run the Panoptix on high noise reject and get still the same sensitivity to when you jig, it giving you that same lift like you can out of the Eagle Eye. The Eagle Eye seems to have a much faster processor in it to be able to do that than the Panoptix setup does here. And you can tell just like how blobby this is. Huge difference here, right? I have no clue how big this fish is. It's tiny, right? And it still looked really big, but I had to have my gain up that high just to be able to see my lure. Now, granted, we turned the noise reject down, so maybe my gain can go back down a couple. We just turned it down from 68 to 65, and let's see what it looks like now. And sure, I'm using a small lure, but I'm only in 15 feet of water. And I'm really only looking for my lure at about 10 feet down. There we go. So that did help, turning the noise reject down. I'm 3 feet away on the Eagle Eye right now from the Panoptix, and you can't see any of this activity that's happening over here on the Panoptix on the Eagle Eye. But when I was doing vice versa, you could. So here's a fish. Oh, we saw a little bit of activity over there on the Eagle Eye. But look at the Panoptix screen. Pretty crazy. Whereas I have that whole beam angle of the Eagle Eye in this Panoptix. So I could, if you're going to be fishing with multiple people in down mode, in 15 feet, give or take, Panoptix may be a better route for that wider beam angle if you're not looking to get up to live scope. But for the price of this Panoptix PS22 ice fishing bundle for $2,000, I mean, you can get a live scope setup, right? So really what we're comparing here is some clarity here. I'll be doing another test out on the ice where I'm actually hole hopping around with both to see is there a big benefit in the hole hop ability of the Panoptix. Like what gives the Panoptix the leg up? Right now it's priced the same as live scope, but it's supposed to be more portable. I built an Eagle Eye setup here that's about the same weight. I'll get a weight on both and put them on the screen here. That is giving me better picture clarity. Granted, not as good of a beam angle, which is really the only con. Hole hop ability, we'll see. Maybe not having the pole is going to be that big of a difference, but not being able to really tell where your transducer is pointed is to me a bigger issue than not having a pole. And that's where I'm struggling a little bit here with Garmin, is I could see if these were priced the same, but this Panoptix is 2 times the price as this Eagle Eye, which is the same price that you could pay to literally get a live scope, right? So you're comparing this to live scope, same price, and the difference is better clarity, bigger screen size, and a pole. All right, let's go back over to the Eagle Eye now. And then I might pop them in forward mode, or at least this Eagle Eye in forward mode, and see if we can fish. Well, we're not going to be able to fish in forward mode, are we? Because it's not going to see down. But what if I put it all the way over there? Maybe. We'll try that. So you can see me going down on the Panoptix and on the Eagle Eye. That's that benefit of that cone angle again. These are all obviously small perch. But I like this because you can actually see some fish activity. You can see how blobby they are, how defined they are, the motion activity. I know normally I wouldn't stay here with this size of fish that I'm catching, but I'm doing it more so you can kind of compare on the screen. Now I wonder if I drop that Panoptix down this same hole as we're using with the Eagle Eye to do a true side-by-side here. Let's see what we get. This is what we're working with here. All right. Eagle Eye versus Panoptix in the same hole. look at the fish coming up to me, and you're not really seeing nearly the definition. Look at, you can count them on the Eagle Eye, and they're just blobby on the Panoptix. And don't mind the depth difference. I think I have the install depth set up on the Panoptix and not on the Lowrance. That's why you're seeing a different depth. Don't pay attention to that. Obviously, they're looking at the same hole. So what's interesting is you see my jig on the Panoptix, and it looks like a fish is coming up from directly below me. And on the Eagle Eye, you can see it's off to the side a little bit. And there's that little tiny perch that just bit it. Okay, let's go back down and let's see as we go deeper down what it looks like. See me going down on both. You don't see any fish coming up to me yet. They're coming in on the Eagle Eye. You can see there's probably 4 or 5 of them there. And on the Garmin, the Panoptix, it just looks like a bunch of blobs, right? And much slower. And we've got the noise reject on medium on the Panoptix and high on the Eagle Eye, and you still see really, really reactive, action of the rod, of the fish. I really, really like that, and I think I'd be able to hook up more fish on this Eagle Eye because of being able to see that, plus being able to count them, right? I would know, like, what is that? Is that a huge fish below me down there on the bottom, on the Panoptix? Well, look, on the Eagle Eye, I can tell it's a bunch of small fish, right? Like, you can tell that. I am getting some interference, though, it looks like on the Eagle Eye, that flickering there, but I'm not getting very much interference on the Panoptix, which is interesting. So what happens if we put the Eagle Eye on medium for noise reject? It's actually not that bad. So now they're both on medium. It's just a massive difference in the clarity here. Do you think if I turn the gain down a little, it'll help? What if we turn the color, what if we turn the gain up a little bit, back to 60, and we turn the color gain down? It's just harder. 50% is default. It's just harder to see now. Right? It did not make it better. What if we zoom in though, kind of like what we are here? So we're looking about 3 feet out each side. So that's more so what we're looking at on the on both of them. Pretty comparable. Beam angle is obviously wider on the Panoptix, so you're going to fill the screen. But that clarity, man, how do we get these things to look a little bit more realistic? Gain at 64. I think we're going to need to turn the color gain back up a little bit. There we go. The benefit of the Panoptix is you've got your wider beam angle. If you're sitting in a house like this, there's no benefit to not having a pole. In fact, I would call it a detriment that there's no pole because you can't tell exactly where it's pointed. The benefit of the Eagle Eye being half the price, better clarity. It's interesting that on the Panoptix, it shows something on the bottom below my minnow, and then on the Eagle Eye, it does not. Look at all the fish. See the bottom separation now, though, on the Eagle Eye versus the Panoptix? It's just a bunch of blobs on the Panoptix. You can tell they're fish, though. So it's not the end of the world. You can see something's happening, which is probably the most important thing. And then you can see a little bit better clarity and things on the Eagle Eye. That looks like that might be a better fish. But he doesn't want the shiner. Maybe it's still a little too big. So I'm going to jig it up and we're going to see how reactive both are. See that activity on the Eagle Eye? so much nicer. So if we pull the shiner up above the bait a little bit, it does show separation on the Panoptix. They both show a little bit of separation. It's just when you're closer to the bottom, that separation is a lot harder to tell. And you can't really count the fish on the Panoptix like you can the Eagle Eye. So as we sit here with a bigger bait down with a shiner minnow on it, this is my consensus. If you're in a setting like this where you're in a permanent shack, you're in a hub shelter, a flip over, when you're just sitting still and you're not actually hole hopping, the benefit of the Panoptix PS22 is that wider beam angle. The benefit of the Lowrance Eagle Eye is better target separation, better clarity, and you get better activity, sensitivity to it. When you jig up, you can see it a lot easier and better too. It also has a lot cleaner screen as well, but the Lowrance, you don't have that wider beam angle like you can see in down imaging right now, and you can't really fish in forward mode with the Lowrance unless you have it quite a long ways away, because otherwise the beam's not going to hit straight down. So there's a lot of pros and cons here. If it were me, the decision that you have to make is, are you going to be fishing with more than one person? If you're going to be fishing with more than one person frequently, technically the PS22 in down mode is going to be better because you can actually cover more holes. If you're going to be fishing by yourself primarily, or other people have their own solution, then I would argue that the Eagle Eye is a better option. The Eagle Eye by far has the better picture, but if you're looking to cover more than one or maybe two holes, the Eagle Eye is not going to be the solution for you. So that's my thought. In terms of pole versus no pole, the Lowrance Eagle Eye is, because it does have the pole, is you can set exactly the angle in what direction you want that transducer pointed. The top of the PS22 with that long cord, depending on how thick your ice is a problem in knowing exactly where it's pointed. Even when it's floating, when you have it in the side, it can turn very easily and it can be hard to get adjusted. However, in down mode, it's not as big of a deal because it doesn't need to be exact and you can still see your bait. The Eagle Eye is half the price. It comes with a 9-inch screen with better image clarity. The Panoptix PS22 is a 7-inch screen, but it does come in a nice bag with it, but it is twice as much money. If I had to choose right now, I would rather go Lowrance Eagle Eye, and here's the reason why. Even though you can only get like 1 or 2 holes with it, if you're fishing with more than one person, you can buy 2 Lowrance Eagle Eye 9s for the price of the Garmin Panoptix PS22. And then you have two people that can fish separately, they can fish together, you can have one in forward, one in down. The options are incredible. And in terms of using it on a boat, now you have 2 to use. 2 is usually better than 1. I would go Lowrance Eagle Eye 9. If you like this video and you want to see more on these units plus compared to other units, subscribe to the channel. We will be doing a hole hopping comparison between these two because that's where I think a larger difference between these two is really going to come in. And then of course I'll be doing some other reviews on these as well as a full wrap up as we get more time on the ice with these. Thanks for watching. Till next time, take it easy.